The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in this show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCAM, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome back to America's Ass. We are on episode 16. Summer's almost over. We go back to school next week. Went by quick. Somewhat happy to get more socialization. So anyway, we're doing a kind of a different episode today. We have our guest on Zoom. We've never done this, so bit of an experiment. Today we have former State Senator Bob Giuda joining us. So thank you for being here and feel free to introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Anthony. I'm former Senator Bob Giuda. Did 6 years in the House and 6 more in the Senate, separated by about 10 years. And glad to be here. I'm a graduate of the Naval Academy, finished high school in Pittsfield, New Hampshire, graduate of the Naval Academy, flew fighters for the Marine Corps, then became an FBI agent for a couple of years, didn't care for that, went to work flying a corporate jet. As you might guess, I'm at an airport, and then I went to work for United Airlines for 31 years. Retired as a senior 777 captain at United 6.5 years ago. Married, 3 grown children, all productive members of society, and married to an incredibly wonderful woman. It was a Navy nurse that I met when I was in the Marines. I was on an exchange tour to the Navy, instructing pilots how to land and take off of carriers. That was one of my special competencies, and always been interested in serving the nation. I've served as a selectman, I've served as a moderator, I've served as a school board member, and of course a state rep, a state senator. And I'm retired now and doing more and working harder than I ever did before.
Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to do our show. So anyway, we'll move right on to the first topic, which tonight, this is a huge topic in the political world, the first presidential debate for the Republican primary. There will be 8 candidates attending, well, maybe 7 because Doug Burgum got injured in a pickup basketball game earlier today. So he may not go, but Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Asa Hutchinson, Mike Pence, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Tim Scott are all going to be there. And it's going to be the first chance to see these candidates go at it and really set themselves apart from each other. So I'm really excited for it. It'll be, well, by the time this is out, the debate will already have happened, so you'll know how everyone did. But how do you think it'll do? How do you think everyone will do?
Well, I think, first of all, at this point in time, I would take any Republican candidate over any Democrat. The direction the country's headed in under Democrat, quote unquote, leadership is disastrous. On every front. It's disastrous on the family front. It's disastrous on the economic front. It's disastrous on the foreign policy front, fiscal policy, all of it. So we definitely need a significant change of direction. That said, I know as much about the candidates as you do. I've read a lot. I've been contacted by some of them, and I too will be interested in watching and seeing exactly what the outcome is. As far as remember, they're dealing to a biased press. So it'll be interesting to see what the press's take is. I think equally of interest is the fact that President Trump chose not to participate, and he's got such an incredible lead in the polls that political calculus might say that, we know what he stands for, we know what he's done, and we know what he's also accused of doing, and is yet to be convicted of a single thing. And yet they keep badgering him and they keep persecuting him. I don't particularly care for his tweets and for that type of stuff. However, when you when you weigh what he has done for the country in the 4 years that he was there, most of which got reversed and made worse by the current administration, you cannot possibly deny the fact that he was a very effective president for these United States and did a lot of good for the people and businesses of the country. But I'm going to watch to see what the others say, as you would. So I really don't have an opinion. I think, they're all good candidates. We'll see what the sorting out process brings. And of course, first in the nation here in New Hampshire. First in the nation here in New Hampshire, of course, is the start of the race, right? The all across the country, Iowa, South Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see where it goes. I don't have any more information than anyone else on that in that regard.
Well, one question I could ask you, and it's been brought up in the media a lot because some people were surprised by it and some weren't. Do you think it was a mistake for Trump to decide not to go to the debate today?
Well, you can say yes and you can say no. If you say that his current standing in the polls is solid, all right, people that support him aren't going to not support him, uh, then what would be the purpose? That the only possibility is he could make a mistake in saying something that might, if you will, begin to chew away at his lead. Also, bear in mind that he's under a gag order for these cases in South Carolina. I'm sorry, in Georgia, and there's pretty extensive gag orders on talking about anything to do with the election or and so from a legal perspective, avoid the temptation or avoid the possibility of making a mistake that puts you in contempt. Um, the other side of the coin is, people want to see him. They want to see what he has to say. And although he said it many times, we know what his policies are. He's a proven entity in the White House. So again, it's I don't have the crystal ball that says whether it was right or wrong or smart or not, but I can see both sides of the argument.
Yeah, I can too. And I've talked to people on the Trump campaign that have both opinions about it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure he will participate if he is the nominee against Biden, because we all know he wants to do that. But speaking of Biden in a debate, I remember hearing somewhere that he won't be participating in the Democratic primary debate against Williamson and Kennedy. And the DNC is not even like acknowledging Kennedy and Williamson as, I guess, serious candidates. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, frankly, Joe Biden is incompetent to be president by virtue of his physical and psychological limitations that continue to manifest themselves. All right. He is, however, and I believe this wholeheartedly, he is under the significant influence of Barack Obama, of Susan Rice, Val Jarrett, George Soros, Bill Gates, and that what I call the cabal, who is seeking to institutionalize one world government. I think that he also, the World Economic Forum, hugely problematic. He has already attempted to give away the sovereignty of the country to the World Health Organization. It's like, wait a minute. None of those guys are elected, and they all definitely have an agenda that is contrary to the intent of the founders of this republic, and I think harmful, to say the least, to the future of the people of this country. So, no, I would be very surprised if Biden participated in a debate with the Republican nominee.
Yeah, he can't really back up anything that he's done. He hasn't done much at all. And just yesterday, he finally went to Hawaii to acknowledge the wildfires. Well, not yesterday, Monday. And he goes up and tells a story about how his house almost burned down. And if you look into it, that didn't even happen. His kitchen was on fire for 20 minutes and they contained it. So he tried to say he knew how they felt and stuff. He's just,
Well,
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
You have an American public that is categorically unqualified in terms of rational discussion about the issues facing the country, okay, to cast a ballot. The process of the primaries, which are all orchestrated, the debates, I should say, are all orchestrated. You tell me how, in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, you can talk about the nation's economy and develop solutions to existing problems. Healthcare, whatever it is, the whole thing's staged and is staged for theater. And as I said, I'm very concerned about the level of knowledge of the American people about the issues worldwide, and hopefully they, we will dig into the issues in a scientific basis. More and more scientists are saying climate change is a hoax, and I happen to believe that. Well, gee, pardon me for departing from the narrative, but the facts are, as the Arctic ice cap shrinks, the Antarctic ice cap is growing. For example, the temperature of the globe is actually declining. It's not climbing, okay? And I tell people all the time, do some research. If you want a real excuse me, a real eye opener. Get on the Google and Google Earth's temperature for the last 10 million years. We are not even out of the noise level of what that parameter is. And yet, what happens is the faux scientists, okay, the junk scientists will take the last 100,000 years. They'll take a very small segment of a very big picture and attempt to convince you that that is, in fact, the reality that we're facing in the future. Every single one of the drastic predictions put by the left has failed to materialize over the past 50 years. Not a one of them. Not a one of them. And so, again, another hoax.
Al Gore, great example. Al Gore would be a great example of climate, you know.
Sure, sure. The expenditure of billions and billions of public sector dollars at the local, state, and national level to pursue a course of zero emissions it's beyond ridiculous. Okay, any scientist will tell you. Okay, then I will wax, if you will, a little bit philosophical. The arrogance of people to think that what God has ordained we can change is appalling to me. Okay, we are setting man up as the king of the hill at the top of the pyramid. Well, uh, anytime that's happened in history, the consequences have been swift and disastrous. Uh, the institutions of our country are under attack from the left. That includes the family, that includes marriage, that includes law, the rule of law. Our justice system has been co-opted by a bunch of thugs who exist in the Department of Justice and in the FBI, all the senior levels. Okay, and what they've done is weaponize those agencies: the IRS, the FBI, DES to some significant. I'm sorry, EPA to some significant level as well. And as you well know, an average ordinary citizen does not have the resources to fight government agencies that are funded to do the very job that they're doing at your expense. So the tyranny of government is extreme in this instance, and the individual citizen, loses everything if they attempt to fight it. So again, the balance of the equation of justice is very lopsided. It needs to be rebalanced.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on a lot of that. People don't really understand how much power the government can have sometimes, and they really, like you said, they really become tyrants. And speaking of power, the next topic is that Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia, has just implemented a 14-day mask mandate. This is the first time in a long time I've heard about a mask mandate happening anywhere. I thought COVID was over, but apparently not at Morris Brown College. So, yeah, I guess a few people got it and they decided bring back the mandates.
Well, I never got the shot and I will never get the shot. I don't believe the science because there isn't any. The shot doesn't prevent, and it doesn't prevent the spread of COVID. It has killed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of elderly citizens. Those are the primary victims of that shot and of the disease. And so, to me, it is a matter of principle against convenience. If I'm at a college and they say wear a mask, I say goodbye. Period. It's very simple. Uh, well, that's going to be inconvenient. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But at some point along the way here, our nation and its people are going to have to start standing on principle and stop standing on expediency. Okay, we're going to have to stop the blind obedience to mandates from people that don't have the authority to make them. Okay, we're going to have to stop the continuing encroachment of government to every area of our life. You know.
Yeah. I got started from standing up to the school board in Derry when they had their terrible mask mandates, and the only way they removed them was when I accused them of being corrupt, basically.
Well, again, ignorance and power are a dangerous combination. Okay, and I've noticed over the many years that I've been in the public sector more or less, mostly more, since 1992. Okay, and I am at times amazed at what happens to a perfectly healthy and normal individual once they assume the mantle of power, whether it be on a planning board, a select board, the state rep, the state senate, the governorship. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Very true.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And last topic before we get on to what's going on with you, bit more of a local New Hampshire news headline. Antonio Vidal, who is a criminal from Brazil, wanted for 11 murders there, was found and arrested in Rye in what many described as if you've ever seen the show Cops, it was like a Cops type arrest where they had smoke bombs or whatever there and they had to get him out. But that's like a international criminal that was found in this state. So that's a big deal here.
Yeah, well, how did he get here? I guess would be my first question. I would submit a guess that it was probably over the Mexican border. Might have come down through Canada. Who knows? Who knows? The fact that the president of the United States has reduced I should say, has basically called off our border patrol, our ICE people. And, since he has been president, more than twice the population of the state of New Hampshire has illegally crossed the border into our country. Think about that. Twice the population of our state. Many of these people are felons. Many of these people are carrying drugs. And many of these people are healthy 20s, 30s males. And you wonder exactly what plan is from the country's enemies as to what are they trying to do? But 2.5 million plus. So you go, wait a minute. Why is the president of the United States, who is willfully and knowingly violating the constitutional requirements of the office and violating the laws of the land, not being held accountable? You have a Congress that's split. Nobody will even bring forth articles of impeachment. The Congress is largely to blame. I don't care if you can get them passed. You need to bring them forward to show the American people the violations of the law and Constitution that are being committed, and let the American people put the pressure on the politicians to do it. But that's not happening.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to introduce articles of impeachment. She announced that a couple weeks ago.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. So they're on summer break right now, but I think in September she's going to start doing that process.
That's courage, and it's necessary.
Yeah.
And then, George Washington was a pretty smart fella. And, I tell people there's 5 documents you need to have and refer to regularly. Read. One is the Bible. I'm unabashed. Okay, our country is a Christian nation. I don't care what Barack Obama wants us to believe. The laws of this land were predicated upon the 10 Commandments. Okay, and largely still are, but that's slowly being eroded. All right, so the Bible, the Declaration of Independence. Parenthetically, if you read that today and you read down the list of grievances, you start scratching your head going, that's kind of happening here too, right? The Constitution of the United States, George Washington's inaugural address, and George Washington's farewell address. That is as good a basis in the freedoms that we have and the knowledge that we must maintain to sustain that freedom as exists. People say, you hear them say separation of church and state. Well, that's a fallacy. Okay, I can go into any school in the country and start praying out loud in the classroom or in the hallway. That the school teachers and administration aren't allowed to do so does not preclude me from doing so, or any parent or child from doing so. But it takes some courage. But that First Amendment says that we shall respect no establishment of religion. They forget the rest of it, nor prohibit the free exercise thereof. I mean, that is so black and white, just as the Second Amendment, right?
Yeah.
And so you just wonder, these states have taken on their own direction. Shall not be infringed. The right to keep and bear arms is pretty clear, and they did it that way for a reason. So, unfortunately, Obama put in a lot of federal judges that don't see it that way, and they rule. They rule from the bench. If you want a really good example of that, what was the decision? I believe it was a decision about the main school, basically education freedom accounts, where the majority said, no, we're not giving money to parochial, we're giving money to parents who are constitutionally and frankly, morally, in charge of the education of their children. And the parents can send the money anywhere they want. Okay, that was a wonderful win for the state of Maine, and of course, a wonderful win for us who had just passed our EFA legislation in Concord. But people, the complexities of life understandably tie people down to a job and get home and raise the kids and so forth. But underlying all of that, I tell people regularly, if you think being a good citizen is paying your taxes, raising your family, not getting speeding tickets, go to China. You can do that there and you'll flourish. But in our country, as a citizen, you have an obligation. Okay, and the obligation is that which was handed over to you as a citizen did not come from government, it came from Almighty God. And you are honor bound and obliged to do your part as both a citizen of this country and a soul to perpetuate that freedom for future generations. That means you get involved. Yes, you give up 1 or 2 nights a week to do something political, or go with the school board, or whatever. The success of the nation depends on the broadest input from the most number of people. And when you see that half the country doesn't even vote, and that a significant majority of our people can't even name their federal or state representatives or senators, you begin to see what the real problem lies.
Yeah.
Jefferson said that the success of our republic depends upon an educated electorate. I'm not convinced that we have that.
Like, I couldn't have said it better myself. We have just under 10 minutes left, and with the remaining time, I brought with me your book on Eagle's Wings, and yeah, I have it with me. I read it. It was amazing, and I highly recommend everyone read it too. In fact, I am going to put the Amazon link in the description of this video for anyone that wants to buy it. So, yeah, feel free to talk about your book for a couple minutes before we end.
So, for anyone that saw An Officer and a Gentleman, it was Richard Gere and Deborah Winger years ago.
I love that movie.
That was filmed in part up on Whidbey Island, Washington. That's happened where I happened to be up there as an instructor pilot to the Navy, and Chrissy was up there as a Navy nurse, and we met, and it's detailed in the book. It's a sometimes humorous, sometimes tragic, but we met, we got married, we had 3 wonderful kids. We've lived all over the country, primarily because of my employment, and I've always had flying in my life, and I'm very grateful for that. I've had a wonderful career. We moved back to New Hampshire in 1996 after being away for 25 years, and we homeschooled our kids, who are all successful and gainfully employed at this time. And I served 6 years in the House, again because Christine always enabled me to do the things that I felt compelled to do. She was a homemaker. She could have made a lot of money as an RN, but our choice was build a home, make the nest, keep the kids, take care of our family. And she always did. Incredible woman. And so I ran for the House, won, was out for 10 years through United's bankruptcy. And then Chuck Morse called me in 2016 and said, we think you could win the seat that Jeannie Forrester's vacating to run for governor. Are you interested? And I said, all right, I'll do it. So I did it. Campaigned all that summer, and won the election, and, was sworn in. And 2 weeks after I was sworn in, we were in a caucus. I think it was either the first or second caucus that we held as the Senate. And my assistant knocked on the door and handed me a note that I have to this day. Said, Senator, your wife has fallen. Please call your daughter. Which obviously I did, and it's in the book. But basically, what happened? Chris had a subarachnoid brain aneurysm on the anterior communicating artery. Long story short, she was supposed to be dead, but wasn't. 10% chance of surviving. She's been in a vegetative state ever since. That's almost 7 years now. 6.5 years going on 7. That happened a month before we retired from United Airlines, and 2 weeks into my first term in the Senate. And I think most people thought I would quit, but I didn't. I thank Chuck Morse profoundly and my fellow members of the Senate. The only time I went to Concord, I was at my wife's bedside. She was in critical care for 5 weeks at Dartmouth, which I was at her bedside except for session day. And I'd race down to Concord, and then I'd go back to my wife. Out of that, when it happened, I started the day after, I started writing brief posts on Facebook to keep people apprised of what had happened and how her progress is doing. And those quickly morphed into me sharing my thoughts on family, faith, love, marriage, etc. And I always incorporated a quote from Scripture to start. I updated people on Christian condition, and I would expound. Well, I did that, several hundred of them, and people started telling me, you need to publish those. Put them in a book and publish them. Well, I could do that. I actually have received gifts from as far away as Tanzania, East Africa, to my home. And the word spread very quickly because prayer groups picked up, okay, and spread this. And so it went all over the world. And so now we have a book. And my sole ambition for the book, I'm not interested in making money. Amazon charges you $24.95. I think out of that I get $1.95. Not a lot. The middle folks got rich. But the point of my book was not for me to make money. It was to try to start putting out there ideas about rebuilding and reconstructing loyalty and faith and family. Nations are made up of institutions, and the fundamental building block of any civilization, which you learn in basic social studies, is the family. And when the family is under attack, which it clearly is, when the family begins to deteriorate, we have a divorce rate that's north of 40%. Okay. We have in our country, children are born, how can I say this? In 48 of the 50 states, 25 to 56% of children are born to single moms. Okay. That's really tough. That's a really tough road to hoe. Mom and child both suffer terribly. We've got to rebuild the family, and marriage is the building block of the family, and family is the building block of the civilization. And as that starts to deteriorate, as we liberalize and vote for such things as homosexual marriage, I'm sorry. The purpose of marriage is procreation. It's not because you love one another and you feel good, right? That's to provide a societal and moral framework for children to grow up. That's coming apart, slow but sure. Divorce rate, etc. And so with this book, I just want to get people to maybe look into my thoughts on that. And hopefully, I'm willing to go anywhere in the country to talk to people about the intersection between faith and the political world that our country is facing right now, because it is critical. You cannot possibly say that faith and religion are not part of our country's foundings. Every one of the founding fathers, without exception, spoke and wrote at length about the need, okay, to stay connected to the Almighty in everything that we did as a nation, and that's not the case. That's not happening now. So,
I thought the book was excellent. I'm a very slow reader, so it took me a while to read it, but it was amazing. Like, I thought about my personal experiences after reading it, and I think it's just a book everyone should read. So, yeah, we'll include that link in the description. We are just about out of time, so feel free to give a brief, I guess, closing statement before we end.
Yeah, I stay away from politics in the book. It doesn't belong in that book. I may write another book about the political world, but our nation needs citizens, not subjects. It needs people who are actively engaged in governing our machines of government, in controlling them. You cannot vote someone in and walk away, because person gets in office, they're going to do what they want. And give an example of Biden, right? What did he say? He was not going to stop fracking. A week into office, he stopped all fracking, right? And the cost to people, my fuel bills last winter were horrendous. And if mine were horrendous, I know a lot of other people's that were, and I don't think they can afford them. But, you hope people put two and two together and make it about more than economics, okay? Look at what's happening to our nation in terms of our stature. When America is weak, the bad actors thrive. And just look around, North Korea. China, Iran, Russia. You know, all you want to say about Trump, he held them at bay. He kept them under control. Not so anymore. So, uh, again, be a citizen. That means faith is the basis of what you do as a citizen. That means getting involved, not just when you vote, but beyond that. Go to the school board meetings, find out what they're teaching. That was really a big boon to us during COVID because all of a sudden parents were horrified to find out, look what the junk is that they're teaching our kids, right? Critical race theory and the gender dysphoria crap. Look, there were two genders. Quote me on this. XX, XY, right? That's it. That's the way the good Lord made it. And I don't care what you think you are or might be. You have a package that was given to you at birth, and that's what you are. Anything else is a psychological aberration. Okay, so um, again, uh, tend to make things complicated when in reality they're really very simple. And just be a citizen, get involved. And I don't care whether you agree with me or not, but the necessity of the discussion and the debate and the dialogue is critical, just as is the understanding that while we might be on opposite sides of an issue, that doesn't mean you're my enemy or I'm yours. Okay. The key to our success in politics is the ability to disagree and then to come together afterwards to deal with the next problem, solve the problems.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say. I wish I thank you very much for this opportunity. I remain thankful to God for giving me the life that I've had and the wife that I've had and the children that I have and the opportunity that I hope I can get to help bring people back into active participation in our country's future.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it all. Like, you have such a unique message, and I've wanted to have you on for a while. So thank you for coming on. That just about does it. I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ask. Thank you for watching.